I noticed him the second I stepped onto the restaurant floor. Not the Mafia boss everyone whispered about, but the small boy sitting beside him. The man, Maxwell Gallow, had a presence so sharp it cut through the air. People shifted away from him without thinking. Like gravity itself changed when he entered a room. But the boy was different. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, watching everything with eyes that held too much silence for a child his age. I was carrying 3 plates of lobster risotto, trying to ignore the pounding in my feet from another double shift. My mind kept drifting to the copy of my nursing textbook in my locker, and to my sister Amanda, who depended on me more than anyone should have to. When the manager pulled me aside, his voice shook as he pointed toward the corner booth like it had teeth. "That's Maxwell Gallow," he whispered. "Everyone is scared to serve him." The last waiter he didn't like was fired the same night. "You're new. If anything goes wrong, I can say you didn't know better. So, you're up." My stomach tightened, but I nodded. I needed the hours too much to argue. When I approached their table, Maxwell didn't even look at me. He was barking orders into his phone, each word sharp and powerful. His suit looked expensive enough to pay off my medical bills twice over, but nothing about him felt soft or comfortable. The boy beside him lifted his head, watching me with an expression I couldn't name. Hope mixed with something tired, something old. I placed his dessert in front of him. He didn't move. He didn't even try to reach for the spoon. Maxwell tapped the table once, annoyed, before going back to his call. That small tilt of the boy's head. The way his eyes didn't follow the food but instead studied my lips. I recognized it instantly. I had seen it every day growing up with Amanda. He was deaf. I don't know what came over me, but I set down my tray and signed softly with my hands where only the boy could see. "Hello, my name is Audrey. What's your name?" His entire face lit up like someone had switched on a light inside him. "Charlie." His hands flew in quick movements, filled with excitement. "Nobody here talks to me. Not ever." It hit me like a punch. A child surrounded by luxury yet starved for something as basic as communication. That was when Maxwell's phone call ended. The room felt like it held its breath when his eyes landed on my hands. Ice, blue, sharp, searching. People nearby went silent. Even the clatter of dishes seemed to fade. "You know sign language," he said. It wasn't a question. His voice held quiet danger, the kind that comes from a man who is used to full control. I kept my chin up, even though a small warning flickered in my chest. "My younger sister is deaf," I said. "I learned so she would never feel alone." Charlie signed fast at his father, eager and animated. Maxwell watched him with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Then something in his expression shifted, just slightly. "He says he wants you to show him how to order chocolate cake," Maxwell said. His lips moved into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "The staff usually guess what he wants, since they don't speak his language." Quote. I knelt down to Charlie's level, ignoring the gasp from a server behind me. "Do you want to learn how to order dessert properly?" I asked aloud and in sign. He nodded hard, his whole body buzzing with excitement. The next evening, Maxwell Gallow returned. With Charlie, and with a very direct request to sit in my section. No one refused him. Not even the manager. Charlie waved the moment he saw me. The boy I had met yesterday, stiff and silent, was gone. Now he was bright, expressive, asking me everything about my day with his hands moving so fast I almost laughed. But Maxwell watched us. He watched everything. His gaze followed each sign, each smile, each small moment, as if he was studying something he couldn't quite understand. "My son's mother died when he was 2, he said quietly when I brought their appetizers. His voice carried no emotion, but his eyes, there was something hidden there. She was the only one who spoke to him properly." I swallowed gently. Talking to a man like him felt like walking across thin ice, but the truth came anyway. "Communication is a bridge," I said. "Everyone deserves to have one." For the first time, the edges of Maxwell's expression softened. He told me about tutors who taught lip reading and speech but didn't bother to learn sign language. He told me how people shouted at his son as if volume could fill silence. He told me how dangerous his world was, how any sign of weakness could get someone killed. But as we talked, Charlie showed me sentences he had learned from books, from videos, from nowhere anyone expected. "He's smart," I said, turning toward the boy with a warmth I couldn't hide. "He's been teaching himself." A shadow crossed Maxwell's face, as if guilt had found him. Then he said it. "My driver will pick you up tomorrow at 7. You will teach my son at our home." I blinked, startled. I have school and another job. I can't just walk away from my responsibilities. Maxwell slid a card across the table. A number was written on the back, a number that made my breath stop. "That amount weekly should solve your concerns," he said. "Charlie needs someone who sees him." Quote. I looked at Charlie's bright eyes, and that was the moment everything changed. The Gallow mansion didn't look real the first time I saw it. It sat high above San Francisco like a stone fortress, guarded by black iron gates and men with earpieces who looked carved from the same granite as the walls. I clutched my bag of sign language materials tighter as one guard checked my ID while another looked me over with sharp suspicion. For a moment I wondered what I was doing here. I was just a waitress with overdue tuition bills and a sister who needed me. This wasn't my world, this was his. But then the front doors opened, and Charlie ran toward me with pure joy in his eyes. His hands flew as soon as he reached me. He signed that he had been waiting since breakfast, that he had cleaned his room, that he had practiced everything we learned at the restaurant. All the fear in my chest loosened when I saw him. Maxwell walked in behind him, dressed in dark jeans and a black button-up shirt. Somehow that was more intimidating than the suit. He nodded at me with the same control and strength I had seen before, but his eyes lingered longer than I expected. "This way," he said, his tone clipped but steady. He led us to a room that had been turned into a classroom. Posters in English and ASL lined the walls. New books were stacked neatly on the shelves. Expensive learning tools filled the space. "You did all this in one night," I said before I could stop myself. "I don't waste time," he replied simply. Charlie pulled me to the table and started showing me every new item as if he had discovered treasure. His excitement warmed the cold, polished room instantly. As we worked through the first lesson, I realized something surprising. Maxwell wasn't pretending to check emails by the door like a distant father. He was watching us, carefully, slowly learning the shapes of my hands, following each sign, following every change in Charlie's face. After a while, he said quietly, "His mother was an astronomer. She used to tell him the stars spoke better in silence." I looked up at him. For a moment, he wasn't the mafia boss people feared. He was just a father missing the one person who once made sense of his world. "Your son experiences everything differently," I said gently. "That's not weakness. That's brilliance." Something in his jaw tightened, a flicker of emotion he tried to hide. But then Charlie tugged on his sleeve, asking if he could show me his room. Maxwell hesitated only a moment before nodding. "He's never let anyone inside before," he said quietly as we walked down the hall. "Not even his nanny." The moment we stepped into Charlie's room, I understood why. It was a world built by a child who lived in silence. Drawings of hands forming signs filled the walls. Handwritten labels covered everything in the room. A telescope pointed toward the city, as if he spent hours watching a world that didn't reach back. Sketchbooks held drawings of people's faces, each page full of emotion. Joy, fear, anger, hope. "He sees everything," Maxwell murmured behind me, "more than people realize." There was a small wooden box under Charlie's bed. He opened it for me, revealing polished stones labeled with emotions. Happy, sad, angry, lonely. It broke something inside me to imagine him carrying those around just to be understood. "You built your own language," I whispered. Charlie beamed with pride. Maxwell watched us from the doorway, his eyes darker than usual. There was something raw in his expression, something protective, something afraid. "Most people don't know he's deaf," Maxwell said. "If my enemies found out, they'd use it. They'd use him." The reality hit me like cold water. Being part of their lives wasn't just about teaching a little boy. It was walking into danger. "He needs more than lessons," I said softly. "He needs people who speak his language." For a long moment, Maxwell didn't answer. He just watched Charlie, his expression caught between fear and longing. Then he said, "You're the first person to make him feel seen." The weeks that followed changed everything. I fell into a routine, work my morning shift, attend school. Then, teach Charlie in the evenings at the mansion. He learned fast. His hands moved with confidence now, his emotions open and bright. He wasn't the quiet boy ignored at the restaurant anymore. He was blooming. Maxwell watched every lesson, some days from the door, some days from the table. And every day, I caught him trying a new sign. Sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking. But one night, everything shattered. When I arrived at the mansion, the atmosphere was different. More guards, more tension, eyes watching every shadow. Maxwell met me at the door himself. "There's been a situation," he said in a low voice. "Threats, by name, Charlie's name." His calm tone made it even more terrifying. "Does he know?" I whispered. "No, and he won't. Not from me." He led me to his study, a room full of monitors and locked drawers and secrets. It was the core of his world, and he was letting me see it. "I need to know if I can trust you," he said. His gaze pinned me in place. Strong, intense, searching. "Because right now, you are one of the only people who knows the truth about my son." My pulse raced, but I didn't look away. "I would never hurt him," I said. Something changed in his eyes. A wall shifted. A door opened. "I believe you," he whispered. Before I could respond, Charlie burst through the door with bright hands and a smile that melted away every fear. But the peace didn't last. 3 hours later, the mansion went silent. Too silent. And I realized something terrible. Danger had just found us. The silence inside the mansion felt wrong, heavy, unnatural. Even Charlie paused during our lesson, looking toward the hallway with a small frown, sensing the tension through vibrations in the floor. I tried to smile at him, but my stomach tightened as the house slowly shifted from quiet to alert. When the door swung open, Maxwell's right-hand man appeared, his face pale and tight. He leaned close to Maxwell and whispered something I couldn't catch, but I didn't need to hear it. The change in Maxwell told me everything. One moment, he was a father watching his son learn. The next, he was the man the city feared. "All of you," he ordered, his voice low but sharp. "Upstairs, now." Quote. Charlie grabbed my hand, confused. I squeezed his fingers, hoping he wouldn't sense my fear. Maxwell guided us through a hallway lined with locked doors and security cameras. His steps were steady, but the muscle in his jaw kept jumping. At Charlie's door, Maxwell knelt down and placed both hands on his son's shoulders, making sure Charlie could read his lips. "Stay with Audrey. Do not leave this room." Charlie nodded slowly, but worry clouded his eyes. He touched his father's hand, asking what was happening. Maxwell forced a small smile, but his eyes were dark. "Danger close. Audrey will keep you safe." Then he turned to me. "Do not let him out. No matter what you hear, Paul will guard the hallway." I swallowed hard. "Be careful," I said before I could stop myself. His eyes flicked to mine, softer for a moment. "I always am." Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of his own house. 3 hours passed. 3 long hours where the mansion made no sound at all. Charlie practiced signs with me, though his hands trembled every few minutes. I tried to act calm, to keep our lesson steady, but my mind kept drifting to Maxwell, to the look in his eyes, to the danger pressing in from the outside world. Finally, the door opened. Maxwell stood there. He looked different. His knuckles were bruised, a cut above his eyebrow, his black shirt stained with something dark. But his eyes went straight to Charlie and filled with relief so deep I felt it in my chest. Charlie rushed to him and wrapped his arms around his waist. Maxwell held him with one arm and touched the top of his head with the other, closing his eyes for one quiet moment before speaking. "It's handled," he said. I didn't ask what handled meant. I already knew. Then he looked at me, and his tone changed. "You're staying here tonight. A room has been prepared. I called your sister's nurse. She knows you're safe." My heart stopped. "Nurse? What nurse?" He pulled out his phone and stepped aside so I could hear. A calm voice told me Amanda was comfortable, cared for, and safe for the night. My chest tightened. He had hired someone without asking me. He had stepped into my life again, rearranging things like it was his right. "You can't just take over my life," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Amanda is everything to me. I need to see her." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, annoyance, maybe both. "You will," he said. "Tomorrow, I'll bring her here. For now, sleep." Sleep didn't come. I lay awake in a guest room that looked like a hotel suite, but the pillows felt too soft and the walls felt too quiet. Somewhere in the mansion, guards walked the halls. Somewhere below, Maxwell was probably still bleeding. My heart refused to settle. In the morning, I saw a helicopter landing outside. Men in suits walked with Maxwell across the lawn. The cut above his eye was stitched. His shirt was crisp again. But he still looked tired. More human than he ever had before. Charlie found me at breakfast, excited as always. He signed about his favorite foods, about wanting to show me a new book, about how happy he was that I stayed. His joy softened the fear inside me. Then Amanda arrived. Her nurse rolled her in through the foyer, and Amanda's face lit up when she saw me. Beside her, Charlie watched her hands move and immediately recognized the familiar language of silence. "You didn't tell me you worked for him," Amanda signed with wide eyes. "I don't," I signed back quickly. "Not like that. I'm just teaching Charlie." She shook her head. "This man paid for my surgery 2 years ago." The one insurance refused. My breath caught. That never made sense back then. The mysterious donor who covered the bill. The sudden forgiveness of debts. The new apartment discount. It had been him. Maxwell stepped forward with the calm confidence of someone who expected all the confusion to fall into place. "I track people with exceptional skill," he said simply. "You stood out long before you served me at Bellini's. I planned to hire you eventually. But I didn't expect you to change my son's life." I felt dizzy. He had been watching us for years, not in a cruel way, but not harmless either. Before I could answer, a deafening crash shattered the windows. Glass exploded inward. Men in tactical gear stormed the mansion with guns drawn. Maxwell reacted instantly. He grabbed my wrist with one hand and pushed Charlie behind him with the other. "Get them to the safe room!" he shouted at Paul, who appeared out of nowhere and fired at the intruders. Maxwell pressed a small key into my hand, his voice low and fierce. "Take them. Go. Now." Charlie's eyes were wide with terror. Amanda gasped. "I didn't think. I just ran." Paul led us through a hidden panel in the wall into a narrow passageway that slammed shut behind us. We reached a steel door. I typed the code. Charlie's birthday. Inside the safe room, the door locked with a heavy hiss. We were sealed inside the core of the mansion. On the monitors, I watched chaos unfold. Gunmen. Smoke. Security fighting back. Maxwell outnumbered. And then, on camera, I saw him thrown to his knees. A gun pressed to his head. The leader stared straight into the lens. "Bring us the boy," he said, "or Maxwell Gallow dies." Charlie looked at me with trembling hands. Is my father a bad man? My throat tightened. My eyes burned. My hands moved slowly, so he could see every word. "Your father is a man who loves you more than anything in this world." Outside, the countdown began. And I realized something terrifying. Only I held the key. Only I could decide what happened next. The timer on the monitor glowed red, counting down the minutes until Maxwell would be executed. Charlie's small hand gripped mine hard enough to tremble. Amanda watched the screens with wide, frightened eyes while the nurse checked the locks again, making sure nothing could breach the room. My pulse hammered in my ears. I had never felt so much pressure in my life. Maxwell was kneeling on the floor of his own home, beaten, bleeding, but his eyes were fierce. He wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for Charlie. The thought burned through me. Charlie tugged on my sleeve, signing with frantic shaking hands. "Help him, help him, help him." "I will," I said, my voice thick as I knelt in front of him, "but I need you to do something for me too." His hands paused, trembling. "Look at me," I signed slowly. "I'm going to teach you an emergency message. Your father will understand it. No one else will." Charlie swallowed hard and nodded quickly. I showed him the sequence, carefully guiding his fingers, making sure his movements were exact. Every time he messed up, he shook his head and tried again. Determination overpowered fear. He wanted to save his father more than anything. When he finally got it right, I touched his cheek gently. "You're brave," I signed. "Braver than anyone out there." He straightened his shoulders and nodded. The nurse rolled Amanda closer. "We follow your lead," she said. "Whatever happens next." I took a deep breath and forced the fear out of my voice. "We're going to walk out there, slowly. Charlie and I will go first. Amanda and the nurse will stay behind us. No one tries anything unless I say so." Unlocking the safe room door felt like stepping off a cliff, but holding Charlie's hand kept me steady. As we walked down the hidden passageway, every vibration through the floor reminded me how close danger lurked. My mind screamed to turn back, but my heart pushed me forward. When we emerged into the grand hall, the gunman spun toward us instantly. "Stop right there!" one shouted, aiming his rifle at Charlie. I pulled him closer, shielding him with my body. "I brought the boy," I said loudly, making my voice steady, even though fear clawed at my throat. "Now let Maxwell speak to his men and call off the reinforcements outside." The leader sneered. "He doesn't give orders anymore." But he turned to check on Maxwell anyway. That was the moment we needed. Charlie stepped forward, small and calm, placing himself directly in his father's line of sight. The room went still. Maxwell's eyes widened when he saw him. Then Charlie signed the emergency sequence, quick, sharp, clear. Maxwell's entire body changed. This wasn't panic. This was recognition. My son is telling me something important. The leader didn't notice the shift. "What's he saying?" he barked. "Is this some kind of trick?" But Maxwell didn't answer him. His attention was locked onto Charlie, onto the message he couldn't ignore. Then everything exploded. Maxwell lunged sideways with sudden precision, knocking the closest gunman off balance. A shot fired into the floor. Security forces burst from hidden doors, from behind columns, from stairways above. Gunfire shook the walls. Smoke filled the air. "Run!" I screamed, pulling Charlie behind an overturned table as bullets cracked overhead. Maxwell fought like a man who had something worth living for. Every move had one goal: get to his son. When he reached us, he dropped beside us with a grunt, blood soaking through his shirt from a wound in his shoulder. "You did good," he told Charlie, voice rough but full of pride. Charlie threw his arms around him, trembling. Maxwell held him close with one arm while firing at the attackers with the other. Within minutes, the attackers were disarmed or fleeing. Maxwell's men swept through the mansion, shouting "Clear!" from every room. The chaos quieted, the smoke thinned, and Maxwell finally allowed himself to breathe. He turned to me, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. "You saved us." "No," I said quietly. "Charlie saved you. I just helped him believe he could." His eyes met mine, full of something raw and unguarded, something almost tender, something dangerous in a completely different way. Everything changed after that. Months passed. The mansion was rebuilt. Maxwell testified against his former associates and walked away from the criminal world with immunity. He shifted his empire toward legitimate work, funding education programs, accessibility initiatives, and security reforms. Charlie enrolled in the best school for deaf children in the state. His confidence grew, his world opened. He made friends, joined a photography program, even gave speeches about communication access with interpreters by his side. Amanda stayed involved too, becoming part of the new Gallow Foundation's art outreach team. She found purpose again. As for me, I left my waitress job. Bellini's reopened under new ownership, and Maxwell insisted I take a leadership role. He said I had a gift for managing people, for understanding what others needed. But our connection wasn't professional. Not anymore. One night at the restaurant's private event, I caught Maxwell watching me, not with the cold, calculating gaze he once had, but with something steady, warm, intent. When he approached me, the room seemed to fade away. "You never answered Charlie's question," he said, "about whether I'm a bad man." I looked at him, truly looked, at the father who learned sign language in secret, at the man who protected us all, at the man who rebuilt his life, piece by piece, guided by love instead of fear. "You're not a bad man," I said. "You're a good man who finally chose the right side of yourself." Maxwell stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "And now?" I didn't answer with words. I answered with my hands. The signs were simple. "I choose you." His fingers intertwined with mine, repeating the signs back softly. "I choose you too." Charlie rushed over then, laughing, signing something so fast we both had to ask him to slow down. "Family," he said. "We're a family. Even if we don't match." I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. Maxwell rested his hand gently on my back, pulling Charlie close with the other. In that moment, surrounded by color and warmth and second chances, I realized something true. Family wasn't about how you started. It was about who stayed when the world went silent.